I've been driving long haul for 15 years. Cattle feed, machine parts, frozen goods. I've hauled just about everything across every major corridor in the country. My name is Marcus Hale, and I want to be clear about something before I say what I'm about to say. I don't drink on the job. I don't take pills to stay awake. I've never once fallen asleep behind the wheel. What happened to me on the night of August 9th, 2021 was not a hallucination, not a dream, and not a mistake. I was running a load of packaged dairy from Sacramento to Salt Lake City, US 50 through Nevada, the loneliest road in America, the signs call it. I'd driven it a dozen times, empty desert, distant mountains, the occasional blink of a small town. I left Sacramento at 5 in the afternoon, planning to roll into Salt Lake around 4 the next morning. The drive was clean for the first 4 hours. No traffic, no weather, good road. The stars over the Nevada desert are something else at night. Thick and low, like you could reach up and drag your fingers through them. I had an audiobook playing, some thriller I'd half forgotten about. My thermos was full. I was comfortable. Around 10 p.m., I came up on a little settlement called Dunmore. Population maybe 400 if the sign was generous. One traffic light, a shuttered motel, a diner with a hand-painted sign that read "Eat" in letters big enough to see from the highway. A grain silo painted red sitting at the edge of town like a sentinel. I noted it the way I always note small towns, as a landmark, a mile marker of sorts, and kept moving. I drove for another 50 minutes. Then I saw lights ahead. At first, I didn't think anything of it. Another town, maybe Eureka, maybe Austin. But as I got closer, something pulled at the back of my brain. That red silo, the single traffic light swinging on its cable in the desert wind, the hand-painted "Eat" sign, same crooked letters, same flickering neon beneath it. Dunmore. I checked my odometer. I had driven 53 miles since the last time I passed through. My GPS showed me exactly where I should be, advancing normally, nothing unusual. But the road had curved me back like a fishhook and dropped me right back where I'd started. I told myself what anyone would tell themselves. 2 towns that look alike, a trick of exhaustion, coincidence. I drove through and kept going. 45 minutes later, there it was again, the silo, the light, the sign. I pulled over and sat on the shoulder, engine running, staring at that little cluster of buildings. My GPS showed I was 112 miles east of my last confirmed position, but those buildings in front of me were the same buildings I had passed twice now. I was certain of it, the way you're certain of your own face in a mirror. I tried the CB, static. I tried my cell, no signal. I sat there in the dark for 10 minutes telling myself to be logical, to be professional, to be Marcus Hale, who has driven 2 million miles without losing his mind. Then I put the truck in drive and went through the town again. This time I looked closer. Lights in the diner windows, warm and amber, but no silhouettes, no movement. A dog bowl on the sidewalk outside the motel, but no dog. A bicycle propped against a stop sign with a playing card clipped to the spokes, absolutely still, even though the wind was gusting hard enough to rock my cab. Everything in Dunmore looked like a photograph of a town, like the idea of a town, but not the living thing. I stopped in the middle of the intersection, got out of my truck, which I know was stupid, but I needed my feet on the ground. The asphalt was warm from the day. My boots crunched on a scatter of sand. I walked to the diner window and pressed my face to the glass. Tables set with silverware and napkins, coffee cups upside down on their saucers, a pie rotating slowly on a display stand. Rotating, on its own. Nobody touching it, nothing mechanically visible that should make it turn, just the pie going slowly around and around in an empty diner. I got back in my truck. I turned around and drove east, back towards Sacramento. If I couldn't go forward, maybe I could go back. Maybe backward was the answer. I drove 50 minutes east. I drove through Dunmore again. I'm not gonna pretend I handled it with dignity. I shouted. I hit the steering wheel. I did one more loop around that intersection, this time going slowly, windows down, calling out into the empty streets, asking if anyone was there. The only answer was wind and the distant sound of something metallic, loose sheet metal somewhere, clanging softly in the dark. Then my GPS, which had been steadily lying to me for hours, flickered, rebooted, and when it came back online, it showed a route I hadn't seen before, a thin gray line peeling south off US 50, County Road something, no number I recognized. The screen pulsed with a faint blue border around that line, just once, like a heartbeat. I don't know why I followed it. I had no reason to trust it, but I had no other options. The county road was unpaved, pale caliche dust rising in my headlights. I drove it for about 20 minutes into pure darkness. No landmarks, nothing but flat scrubland on both sides. Then the road climbed a low ridge, and when I came over the other side, I was on US 50 again. Different signage, different mile markers. The GPS showed me north of Ely, properly placed, advancing correctly. My fuel gauge showed 2 hours of consumption more than it should have. My logbook was 40 miles short of where I was standing. Something had taken time from me, real, physical, measurable time, and given me nothing back for it. I reached Salt Lake City at 7 in the morning, 3 hours late. I filed the delivery, said my truck had run rough, and didn't mention Dunmore. I looked it up later. There is no town called Dunmore on US 50 in Nevada. There never was. I requested a reassignment to the northern I-80 corridor and haven't driven US 50 since. But sometimes, when I'm in that half-asleep place between shifts, I see the pie spinning in the dark diner window, and I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't followed that blue line off the road, whether I'd still be going around that intersection right now, whether Dunmore is still out there waiting, patient as stone for the next truck to come through at night. They say the loneliest road in America is US 50 through Nevada. I believe it now, but not for the reason the signs mean. My name is Teresa Vang, and I've been driving flatbed freight in the Mountain West for 9 years. I need to say up front that I am not someone who believes in ghosts. I was raised practical, worked practical, and before the night I'm describing, I would have laughed at anyone who told me this kind of story. I'm not laughing anymore. February in Wyoming. Anyone who's driven freight through those plains in winter knows what I'm talking about. Temperatures that crack your mirrors, wind that turns a loaded flatbed into a sail, roads that disappear between one white blink and the next. I'd driven worse, but the night of February 14th, 2023 wasn't about weather. It was about a man standing in the snow on Highway 287, 60 miles from the nearest open gas station. I was hauling steel pipe from Rawlins to Riverton. 4-hour drive in good conditions, maybe 6 in the cold. The highway was plowed but refreezing, the temperature sitting at -11, and the sky had that particular flat gray of a sky that's done snowing but hasn't decided yet whether to start again. I was alone on the road, which didn't surprise me. Nobody drives 287 on a winter night unless they have to. Mile marker 33. I almost missed him. He was standing maybe 10 feet off the shoulder, facing the road, wearing a canvas work jacket and jeans. No hat, no gloves, no gear that made any sense for the conditions. He was a young man, early 30s maybe, just standing completely still in the snow like he'd grown there. No vehicle, no tracks in the snow coming from anywhere, just him. I pulled over. I know the rules, I know the protocols, but it was 11 degrees below zero, and there was a man standing alone in the dark on an empty highway in February. I pulled over. He came to the passenger window immediately, moving fast, almost like he'd been expecting me. I cranked it down 2 inches. "You need help?" I called out. Up close, I noticed his face was completely calm. Not panicked, not freezing, not relieved the way a person should look when a truck stopped for them in those conditions. "I need you to hear something," he said. His voice was clear and even, not chattering with cold. "You're going to come up on a jackknifed semi at mile 61. It's already there. You won't see it until you're 40 feet out because of the grade change. If you don't start braking at mile 62, you'll go into it." I stared at him. "How do you know that?" "Dispatch should have flagged it," he said. "They didn't. No one's called it in yet. There's no one on this road but you." He looked up at the sky briefly, then back at me. "Mile 62. Start braking." "Get in," I said. "I'll take you to Shoshone." He shook his head. "I can't go into town. I just needed to tell you." He stepped back from the window. Mile 62. I should have argued. Instead, I watched him walk back to the shoulder and just stop, standing in the snow again, looking at the road ahead, like he was waiting to flag the next one. I drove. My hands were sweating inside my gloves. I watched the mile markers. 45, 50, 55, 58. The road here runs flat for miles, then drops sharply over a ridge, the kind of grade change that gives new drivers a scare even in summer. Mile 62. I breathed out and pushed the brakes. Gradual at first, then firm. The trailer protested, shifted slightly, but held. Over the ridge, in my headlights, a Peterbilt, fully loaded, jackknifed across both lanes and the shoulder. Rear trailer angled hard into the oncoming side. The driver was already out, standing by the cab with a flashlight, having just started to set his triangles. At the speed I'd been going, braking from 40 feet, I would have driven straight into the rear axle of that trailer. I stopped with about 20 feet to spare. My hands wouldn't stop shaking for an hour. The other driver, a man named Phil out of Casper, hadn't been able to reach this patch yet. He'd just gone over the ridge 3 minutes before I got there. Nobody knew it was blocked, exactly like the man in the snow had said. After we redirected what little traffic came through and waited for the highway patrol, I told Phil about the man at mile 33. I described him: canvas jacket, no hat, young face, impossibly calm for the cold. Phil went quiet. Then he said, "Sounds like Garrett." I asked him what that meant. He told me about a driver who'd been killed on 287 about 4 years prior, around mile 33 in fact, when a deer had sent him off the shoulder in the dark. Young guy, early 30s, canvas work jacket was apparently kind of his signature, wore it year-round, even in winter. Other drivers had mentioned seeing someone at that mile marker over the years, always on bad nights, always delivering warnings that turned out to be true. Nobody stopped for him usually, Phil said. Too spooked, or they figure he's a hallucination. I stopped for him. He told me the truth and it saved my life. That's all I know. That's all that matters. I still drive 287. I always slow down at mile 33. Not out of fear, out of respect. Because somewhere in that cold Wyoming dark, there's a man in a canvas jacket who decided that even after everything, he still had freight to deliver. His job was just different now. He delivers warnings instead of cargo, and he never stops working. I drove trucks for 22 years, coast to coast, border to border. My name is Dolores Arsenault, and I retired in 2020, 2 years after the night I'm going to tell you about. Not because of age or health, because of what I saw on I-40 through the Texas Panhandle on a Tuesday in November. And because some things, once you've seen them, make every ordinary mile feel haunted. I was running a partial load of industrial shelving from Albuquerque to Oklahoma City. Night run, which I preferred, less traffic, cooler temps, quieter CB. I left Amarillo around midnight, figure I'd roll into OKC by 7 in the morning. The Panhandle at night is about as dark and flat as the world gets. Wind, sage, stars, and the white lines ticking past. I'd done it so many times it was like breathing. Somewhere around 1 a.m., about 40 miles past Amarillo, I picked up company on the CB, a convoy of 6 trucks running eastbound, same direction as me, running faster. They rolled past me over about 10 minutes, big rigs, all loaded heavy by the look of the wheel spray, running tight formation about 4 truck lengths apart. The lead driver checked in on Channel 19, friendly, professional. Evening southbound, eastbound convoy passing, 6 units. You're welcome to slide in the back if you want company.
I told him I'd take the caboose position and eased up my speed. I tucked in behind the sixth truck and we ran as a unit, which felt good. There's a comfort to convoy running that's hard to explain if you've never done it. Like a school of fish, everybody benefits. The drivers chatted on the CB, I introduced myself. There was Arthur in the lead, then a woman named Claudette, then Roy, Domingo, a younger sounding guy named Pete, and a quiet man called Stitch, who barely talked but keyed his mic twice when addressed, like a nod. Normal cross-country truckers. We talked about loads, fuel prices, a construction zone we'd all heard about near the Oklahoma border. Everything was right until Roy said something odd. He mentioned a rest stop outside of Groom, Texas, and how he was looking forward to the coffee there. I knew the rest stop he was describing. I'd stopped there 100 times, but it had been demolished and rebuilt about 3 years prior. Totally different layout, new building. The old one Roy was describing, with the specific detail about a particular corner booth and a pie case by the register, had been gone since 2015.
I almost said something. Then I noticed the trucks. The sixth truck, directly in front of me, was running old Michelin Super Singles on the rear axles, a tire configuration I hadn't seen in active fleet use in years. And the cab itself, when I lit it up properly with my brights for a second, was an older model, late 90s at most. Not restored or vintage, just old, used, like it had been running continuously since it rolled off the line and had never stopped. I looked at the others as we passed under a series of overhead lights near an overpass, all older rigs, all immaculate despite the age, all running without the blinking amber clearance lights that federal regulations had made mandatory, the regulations that went into effect in 2006. The hair stood up on my arms. "Arthur," I said on the CB, keeping my voice steady, "what's your cargo tonight?" "Mixed freight," he said. "You?" "Shelving units, running light." I paused. "What year is it, Arthur?" Silence. Long enough that I thought the radio had cut out. Then Claudette came on, and her voice had changed somehow. Softer, more distant, like someone calling from the next room. "What kind of question is that, sweetheart?" "Humor me." Another silence. Then Arthur's voice, and something had shifted in it too. Quieter, almost sad. "It's November," he said. "Cold out, clear roads, good night to make time." He didn't answer the question. I started easing back, let a gap open between me and Stitch's truck. The convoy continued at the same speed, the same spacing, moving with that clock-perfect regularity that I'd found comforting an hour ago and now found terrifying. "I'm going to pull back a bit," I said. "Grab some coffee at the next stop." "Safe travels," Arthur said. "It was good having you." And they just went on, kept their speed, kept their formation. I watched them pull away from me, 6 sets of running lights shrinking against the flat Texas dark, and I watched them fade. Not like they drove into the distance, like a television set being turned down. Dimmer and dimmer, the lights bleeding out until they were gone. Not distant, gone. My CB went to pure static for about 30 seconds, then normal chatter returned. A driver somewhere out of Childress complaining about a crosswind. I pulled into a Flying J and sat in my cab for a long time. I wrote down every detail I could remember. The names, the truck models, that business about the rest stop outside Groom. I spent a long time after that night searching for what I could find. I'm not going to say I found proof, but I will say that a 6-truck convoy was involved in a weather-related accident on I-40 in the Texas Panhandle in November 1991. All 6 drivers were killed when a sudden dust storm dropped visibility to 0 and a bridge abutment ended it. Arthur was one of the names listed. So was someone called Claudette. I drove another 2 years after that, but I never ran in convoy again. And whenever I see a tight formation of rigs coming up behind me in the dark, I wait until they pass before I ease back into my lane. I let them go. Some convoys, I've learned, you don't want to join.
Some of them have been running since before you were born, and they'll be running long after you're gone. And the drivers inside them, steady, professional, friendly, are just trying to reach a destination they've been chasing for 30 years. You can't help them. The best you can do is wave them on and be grateful when their lights finally disappear from your mirrors. I'm writing this because I can't keep it inside my own head anymore. My name isn't important. I still work in freight and I'd like to keep working, so call me Ray. What I'm about to describe happened over 4 days in April 2022, and I have thought about it every single day since. The job came through a broker I'd used twice before, both times legitimate, well-paying work. He called it a specialty transport, single item, crated and sealed. Origin, a private research campus in coastal Maine. Destination, a facility in the high desert outside Flagstaff, Arizona. The rate was more than I made in a normal month. For 4 days of driving. My first warning was that I was not allowed to ask what I was carrying. The second was that I was not allowed to stop anywhere not on the pre-approved route itinerary. The third was that I was given a satellite phone, not a cell phone, a satellite phone, and told to use it and only it if I needed to contact anyone. When I asked why, the logistics coordinator who met me for the pickup just said the cargo was sensitive to signal interference. Research equipment, she said, delicate. The crate was loaded by a crew that worked without speaking. Sealed steel, approximately the size of a large chest freezer, welded shut with what looked like a secondary lock system on the outside. It weighed almost nothing. I watched the loading crew handle it with a kind of careful deliberateness that wasn't about fragility. They weren't being gentle, they were being cautious. There's a difference. Fragility is about protecting the object. Caution is about protecting yourself. I drove. Day one was clean. I tracked south out of Maine, into New York, and across Pennsylvania, stopping where I'd been told to stop, sleeping when the itinerary said to sleep. The crate sat in my trailer and did nothing. The sound started on night 2, somewhere in Ohio. Low and rhythmic. Not mechanical. I know every sound a rig makes. I can diagnose an engine problem by ear from 100 feet. This wasn't the truck. It came from the trailer, from the direction of the crate, and it sounded like breathing. Long, slow inhalations and exhalations, steady as a metronome, with a slight wet quality that I still hear sometimes when I'm trying to sleep. I called the satellite phone. The woman who answered already knew my name, knew my location, knew approximately what I was calling about. Normal acoustic phenomenon, she told me. Pressure differentials in the container create a bellows effect. It's documented. Don't open the trailer. I didn't open the trailer, but I lay awake in my sleeper bunk listening to that breathing for 6 hours until it stopped just before dawn. I've described it to people since, and nobody has a good explanation for why a sealed metal crate would breathe in perfect 4/4 time. Day 3, Tennessee into Arkansas, something else started. My radio, off, unplugged, not even drawing power because I'd yanked the cable, began to receive. Faint at first, like hearing a conversation through a wall, then clearer. It was a voice, gender indeterminate, speaking just below the threshold of comprehension. I could hear that it was words. I could hear that it was directed at me. I could not make out what it was saying. I tried the satellite phone, no answer. I drove. A man approached my truck at a rest stop outside Little Rock. He didn't act threatening, hands visible, staying away from the trailer, just standing by my cab door until I looked down at him. He was maybe 50, weathered, wearing a jacket with a university patch I couldn't read. He said, "You should know that it's been awake the whole time, since Maine, and it knows who you are now. It'll remember you." I asked him what was in the crate. "Nothing that was made here," he said. "Something that's been waiting a long time to be moved. You're the first driver who's made it this far without pulling over and opening it." He looked genuinely unsettled by that. Don't open it. Whatever it says, whatever you feel, don't open it. Then he walked away. I watched them cross the parking lot and get into a gray sedan. The sedan didn't move. It just sat there while I pulled out. I watched it in my mirrors until I lost sight of it, and it never moved. Night 3, Oklahoma. The voice from the unpowered radio became clear. Still not words, not quite, but I started to feel them rather than hear them. Pressures behind my eyes. Suggestions that lived behind rational thought. It wasn't telling me to open the crate, it was something more patient than that. It was simply reminding me that it was there, that it had been there, that it would continue to be there. I made Flagstaff on the afternoon of day 4. The receiving facility was inside a canyon I had to access via a dirt road that wasn't on any map I had. They were waiting for me, a full team, some in lab coats, 2 in what I can only describe as partial hazmat gear. They had the crate off my trailer in under 12 minutes. Nobody answered my questions. A man in a fleece vest handed me a paper bag with cash in it and thanked me for my service to science. On the drive back, I stopped at a diner in Winslow and ate a full meal and stared at the wall for a long time. The radio worked fine. The trailer was empty and silent. Everything was normal. Except that night in my motel room, I woke at 3 a.m. to silence so complete it had weight. And in that silence, as clear as a voice in an empty room, I heard something say my name. My full name, not Ray. My real name, which I had never spoken aloud on that trip, which appeared on no documents the logistics company would have had. Just my name. Once. Then nothing. I've changed my route since then. I've changed my phone number, moved twice, rebuilt my life around different roads in different parts of the country. I declined the broker's next offer, and the one after that, and eventually he stopped calling. But sometimes I think about that voice knowing my name, about that crate breathing in the dark behind me for 1,000 miles, about what the man in the parking lot said, that it would remember me, that I was the first driver to make it all the way through. I wonder sometimes what happened to the ones who didn't. I wonder what it felt like to pull over on a dark highway and put your hand on the latch of a sealed container you were never supposed to open, pulled forward by something that lived in the dark and learned your name and waited. I hope I never find out, but I know it's still out there, in that canyon facility in Arizona, in whatever room they locked it in, behind whatever barriers they've built around it. Remembering, waiting, learning patience from the very long road that brought it here.